I cannot possibly do two things at once, especially doing a podcast. That is
I've turned off all my messages.
I cannot do it. I try, but I can't. So anyway, my name is Jesse Starcher. This is Source Material, and tonight, this evening, tonight, this evening, tonight we are going to be.
Tonight, my wife has a hairy ting.
She won't by early morning.
Buried in Killarney.
So look forward to that on the Metal Hammer of Doom sometime soon. All right. So this evening we're going to be discussing a book that came out in 2013. Actually, I think it was a series of webcomics originally, or at least that's the way it's formatted when I read it so far. I know you have the trade there, Mark, but
no, originally I read it as a webcomic. I used to.
Did you really? Oh, yep. My goodness.
I downloaded them to my Kindle. It was the only comic I read on a weekly basis.
No kidding. So we're talking Injustice, Gods Among Us. So this is a comic book that came out as a prequel to a game that was created by the guys that made Mortal Kombat. All right, so let's start first with the game, because that came out in, according to the wiki here, released in April of 2013. Now, Mark, do you have you played the game?
I have. It took me 2 attempts to finally, be able to get it on a PlayStation, on a Xbox that worked. But eventually, I had the game. I had an Xbox that worked. It all finally came together for me, and I played through the story mode, and I actually finally beat the thing after playing it for a while. Jesse Starcher,
Mark Radulich.
This was back when I had an office.
Oh, an office.
Yep. Before my son was born, before we ran out of rooms in my house, I used to have my very own playroom, my very own office. I had a TV with an Xbox. I had my computer. I had a place to go to get away from the family, where my own little man cave. I do my podcasting there. I do my video gaming there. And then in 2014, my son was born, and I lost my room. I lost my office.
Now, I got to ask, what happened? Did it become like a toy room or what happened?
It became his room. We only have like a 3-bedroom house.
Okay. All right. So it was actually made into a bedroom.
Yeah, and this was Florida. We don't have basements in Florida. A basement in Florida means you're swimming with the alligators.
Hanging out down there with the fishes.
That's right.
Well, I totally identify with the whole. I mean, when Caleb came around, there was a very, I would say, at least a couple years that passed where there was no game playing going on, really. I think maybe for, while Caleb couldn't crawl around, I played a little bit. I remember playing Modern Warfare 2 when he was a baby. And then shortly after that, as soon as he was able to crawl around, it was like, okay, all cords, all game systems are now going to be put up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he got older, and I gave him a little bit of a taste of a game. And then it was, Daddy, I want to play. And, of course, to this day, he's 8 years old now, and he wants to play video games a lot. Now, that's a bad habit. Don't follow my lead.
Let me tell you something. We got my son a Fire Stick for the TV that he's getting. Now, it's my old TV. It's my old gaming TV, but it's a dumb TV. It's not a smart TV. Mm-hmm. It's something cheap that I bought that I could, plug my Xbox into. It's for a while, it's just kind of been sitting on my table collecting dust because I wasn't doing anything with it. We decided for his birthday, we're going to mount it on the wall, and we were either going to get a new Apple TV and then let him have the old one, or I was like, you know what, let's save some money. I mean, it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but the Fire Stick is only $30.
Yeah.
So we got him a Fire Stick. I'm putting on Netflix for him and Hulu and all this other stuff that he would watch in his sister's room. So I'm like, okay, buddy, now you can watch TV in your room. Hey, wait a minute, there's games on this? Fuck me in the goat-ass.
Shit.
You smarty kid, you. He wasn't having none of Netflix or Hulu or nothing. He wanted to play video games, and video games is all he wanted to play.
Oh boy, my goodness. We have the Roku. The Roku 3 came with one trial game. Well, actually, I think it has Angry Birds on it, but you can also download a trial of Tetris. Now, the Roku remote it's interesting. It's almost like a Wii remote, where it does have a little bit of motion sensitivity to it, but you can turn it sideways and it looks like a damn a Nintendo controller with the up, down, left, right, and a BA. So you can play Tetris. We didn't buy the actual copy, but you can play 5 levels of Tetris and then the demo's over with. Well, as soon as the kids figured that out, they were like, I want to play Tetris. Oh, okay. But yeah, man, it's once you get them started, it's hard to stop them. I mean, just before we went to bed tonight, or the kids went to bed, well, yeah, bed in quotes, because they'll be down here at some point. But Colton was playing Minecraft on the Xbox One, and that has become a challenge as well. When you got two kids that want to play the same game system, oh boy, it's like writing a whole damn. You got to like write articles of the Confederation or some bullshit. I mean,
was gonna say, like, I bet there's a lot of punching that goes on.
I was in the sunroom a couple days ago, and I hear Caleb going. Caleb's 8 years old. Colton's 4 years old, and Caleb's just yelling, "Dad!" And I come running in there. Colton won't stop hitting me. And then Colton looks at me and goes, "I want to play the Xbox." I was like, can we just, okay, 10 minutes. Yeah. So it becomes a struggle. Well, okay. So my next question.
Yes, sir.
Injustice Gods Among Us. Did you play the game first, then read the comic? Because it looks like I had to do a little bit of digging to find out which came first, because I read the comic first, then played the game second. So I thought the comic came first.
No, it was a game based on the Mortal Kombat engine. And then out of the popularity of the game came the comic.
Okay. Now, did you play the game first and then read the comic, or vice versa?
I don't remember the order that I did any of this in. I do feel like, though, that I'm more familiar with the comic book than I am the game.
Okay.
So I have sat and watched with my kids both the Injustice and Injustice 2, and all the cutscenes edited together as one long movie.
Oh, on YouTube?
Yeah.
Nice.
My daughter and I actually sat down and watched, because she thought the Injustice 2 one was great. She loved it.
Yeah, YouTube's great for that. There is a Back to the Future Telltale game. If you watch it, it's pretty much one big long continuation off of the series. And tells a great story. It's 7 hours long. I mean, I still haven't sat down and watched all of it to this day, but that's what YouTube's great for. You can't buy the game. Well, that's fine. Just go watch what happens in it, especially a good game that tells a great story. And in this particular case, I think we have a winner when it comes to storyline, especially for a prequel to a video game. Usually you don't see too many great stories being told about video game properties. Well, we just talked about Tomb Raider, and we walked out of that after we read it like, okay, well, I'm not really too interested in seeing what's going to happen. And I think Injustice may have even come up on that podcast where we were like, okay, yeah, we want to read what's going to happen next. Tomb Raider, it wasn't the case, really. So Injustice kind of stands out there for me, really being one of the few times you see a comic book company grab a hold of comic book characters and tell a great story to promote, or at least jump off of a video game property.
Well, I'll tell you what, the whole, I know Injustice is really just a long setup so that you can have the characters beat the shit out of each other.
Yes, you gotta, and that's one thing that fighting games usually lack, is like, well, why is everybody beating everybody up? Mortal Kombat that made sense because it was Mortal Kombat. Everybody was pitted against each other for something. But you just didn't have a great storyline to drive the action that was happening in front of you, kind of like Dragon Ball Z. I don't know if you watched any of that.
Nope.
But, okay. Well, when you have a Dragon Ball Z storyline, or when you have a Dragon Ball Z game and you've watched the cartoon, there's no reason why Goku should be fighting one of his best friends in the fighting game itself, because on screen they've always been friends. I think this does a great job to kind of drive that forward so we can watch the feel good. Go ahead.
Whoever came up with the storyline for this really, really understood Superman.
Yes.
Like, to a T. Better than I think a lot of writers do. I mean, I know there's been a lot of debate on this show and amongst our circle of internet buddies about, the various interpretations of Superman. This, I think, is the best one. And I'll tell you why. Because we're not used to seeing Superman necessarily in this way.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right.
Where he's lost everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's been killed. He's sacrificed himself. He's been in danger, but he's never lost Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and all of Metropolis, in one foul swoop.
Yep.
And it's like every action that he takes makes sense for that character. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I loved about Injustice was, they really took a hard look at Superman and said, what happens if he loses?
Oh, yeah.
What happens if he can't save the ones he loves? What would he do? How would he react? I mean, this is the ultimate like DC what if story.
It is. This is a prime example of an Elseworlds tale that was told. I mean, not under the Elseworlds umbrella. Tom Taylor, by the way, is the writer of this. At least the first 6 issues that we're going to read. I don't know if if he's still writing it. I know we're up to like Injustice Year 5, but tonight we're talking Injustice Year 1, like the first 6 issues in that trade. But Tom Taylor, I remember when I first read this book, and I think I read up to like issue 6 or 7, and I was so impressed with what I read. I took to Twitter. I don't do that normally, but I went to Twitter and I found Tom Taylor and I sent him a message. I said, I just want to tell you that this is some of the best stuff I've read in a while. And it's not like superbly well written stuff to where, it's going to put Alan Moore on a run for his money. Just like you said, this is somebody who understands the character and understands the environment in which he's got to try and give us a basis of a fighting game. Not only that, but a fighting game that is made by the creators of Mortal Kombat. So there's going to be blood. There's going to be guts. There's going to be most likely fatalities. It was a great job by Tom Taylor to write this out. And we'll talk about that more as we get into it.
I focused on Superman because it's kind of his story, but everybody else that has some decisions to make in the story, I felt like the writers not only understood Superman, but really understood all of the characters in this. From Batman, I mean, Batman's an easy one.
Yeah,
Batman's always going to be kind of the moral compass of the DC universe, which is kind of weird for a brooding ninja. But like Wonder Woman, the steps that she takes, Flash being conflicted, Green, all of the people that took Superman's side, with the possible exception of Damian Wayne, I saw the good in what Superman was doing and then found themselves kind of in over their head when he went too far.
Yep.
I mean, Wonder Woman, I think, stood by his side the entire time. Was like, Wonder Woman was kind of like his conscience. Was basically, she was saying, don't second guess yourself. This is what should have been done all along. Which is more of the Damian Wayne philosophy of we should have been killing these people from the start. But I mean, like Flash and Green Lantern, their initial reason for joining Superman was they thought, ending crime was a good thing. I mean, for the superheroes, and he wasn't necessarily killing anyone. And it's just like by the time they realized they had chosen the wrong side, it was way too late.
Yeah. I
want to talk about the Joker really quick. I know we're going to talk about this when we actually talk about the story, but to me, that it was a brilliant choice to make the Joker decide, I'm going to fuck with Superman because I'm bored with Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And he became fun and easy. And it was, and we'll get a little bit more into this when we talk about the story, but the Joker being willing to be murdered by Superman just to prove a point was, to me, brilliant.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we'll break this down. And I want to talk about, I can't wait to talk about what we saw happen between Superman and Joker. Go ahead.
Let the most important thing you should get out of this book is that nobody should have to justify a fake mustache.
Yeah. That's right. All right. So, Tom Taylor, the writer, and then we have what I think the wiki calls a rotating team of artists, including Jeremy Rapak, David Yarden, Mike S. Miller, and Tom Derenick. Okay.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. I take issue. There's one panel, and I don't have this in any of my notes, but David Yarden drew this Batman panel, and you probably know what I'm talking about if I describe it. That there's Batman, and he's punching like the shit out of a wooden thing or a heavy bag or something. His knuckles are all bloody, but his face looks like the freaking face that Arnold Schwarzenegger made when he was on Mars and the air was being sucked out. I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened, but that was probably one of the most. Listen, the guy draws light years ahead of me, but that face, I don't know how that even made it past somebody going, that doesn't look right. But so there's a rotating, you can tell that throughout the art style of the whole book. You can tell one issue's done by somebody else. The art is not that great when it comes to what I think they were planning on doing. I don't think DC had that much faith initially as to how well this was going to do. So they probably threw some, I would say, inexperienced artists on here. I could be wrong, but I've not heard of a single one of these guys. the art style was kind of rough. Like, it was done weekly, I believe, right? Initially, wasn't it weekly that they were releasing these things?
I believe so, or like bi-weekly, yeah.
They were very short, and you could tell that it was just kind of like, all right, here we go, boom, quick as possible and put it out there. But either way, let's go ahead. We'll get into the story here. So, Superman, the big blue Boy Scout, is an unwitting pawn in a plot thought up by the evil Batman villain, the Joker. Using Scarecrow's fear gas mixed with kryptonite, Joker tricks Superman into killing his own wife and unborn child, and a trigger attached to Lois Lane's vitals ignites a nuclear warhead that destroys Metropolis.
Like you do.
Oh my gosh, man. This enrages Superman to where he becomes somewhat of I wouldn't call him a dictator, a world dictator, but...
Well, no, we're not there yet.
No, we're not. He believes that something has to change, and he's the man to do it. So he has a goal of using himself and other superheroes from the Justice League to put an end to violence and force world peace. For all the good that Superman can do, Batman believes this cannot end well and begins to put efforts together to attempt to avert his fears from becoming reality. But with each day that passes, each crisis that Superman and others squash, Batman understands he is going to have to make a tough decision. Near the end of the 6 issues, with the aid of the U.S. government, Batman is attempting to put a team together to face off with Superman. So that's kind of, like I said, that's 6 issues in a very, very small nutshell. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Superman, because I want to get that out of the way first. That's the whole, I mean, really, just like you said, he is the main attraction when it comes to the story. Let's talk about what pushed him over the edge. I glazed over it with the fact that Joker kidnaps Lois Lane, attaches a bomb into her chest, and then when Superman finds her, Joker's right there, just operated on Lois Lane. Joker activates this gas, the Scarecrow fear toxin, and it's laced with kryptonite, so it definitely has an effect on Superman. Superman looks up and sees Doomsday hovering above him and proceeds to just go to battle with this guy. And now here, Mark, I mean,
doesn't just go to battle with him, he launches him into fucking space.
He does.
Good,
he grabs him and he's like grabbing him, and there's a battle going on. Joker walks out of there, and Batman's trying to figure out what the hell he did. Harley's there, by the way. But yes, so up in space, shortly afterwards, I think Joker makes some kind of a comment to Batman about, I think there's something to do with the bomb or whatever. But anyway, I guess he says something like, Metropolis won't be there once, if she dies. And at that point, that's when Batman realizes that Superman is not actually battling Doomsday. He's beating the ever-loving shit out of his wife. And then
they launched her into space.
Grabs her and takes her up into space, and she dies. Not only that, I mean, just like we said, the first issue is Superman finding out that he's going to be a dad, and just the joy that he is experiencing, understanding that he's going to be a father. And I mean, he goes through all these emotions at the beginning, like trying to figure out who's going to watch the kid, and what do we got to do? Who's going to be this and who's going to be that? And he even approaches Batman and asks him to be the godfather of his child. And then he kills her unwittingly and unknowingly. And the Joker had wired a trigger of some sort into her body, and when she died, it exploded. It exploded Metropolis and just wiped Metropolis pretty much off the planet.
Well, again, it's very consistent with the Joker's character of every time I go up against you, I lose. So fuck it, I'll pick on somebody who isn't nearly as smart as you. And that's the funny thing about Superman is, Superman's supposed to have this genius level intellect by virtue of being a Kryptonian, because things come so easy to him. He doesn't have to worry. There are certain things that teach you and educate you in life, in as far as, you learn not to touch a hot stove, right? There's just some experiential events in your life that teach you that Superman really hasn't had to go through because he's invulnerable. Mm-hmm. And he's used to just being able to solve things by punching through them. When you look at the byline on Batman, it's always the world's greatest detective. And when you think about the origins of Batman and Superman, not their storybook origins, but I mean their print origins, Batman was a character of Detective Comics. before they made him a ninja and all this other nonsense.
Yeah.
Batman was a guy who, would hide in the shadows and solve mysteries. He's evolved from there, but to a degree, that's still kind of his shtick. Superman came out of Action Comics. He was stopping bank robberies. And so I think Joker finally comes to the realization that, you know what? Batman's always going to be one step ahead of me. They made fun of this in the Batman Lego movie, for Pete's sake. They almost said those exact words. That's probably why they're fresh in my head. I just watched Jonas. But, Joker got tired of not being able to outwit Batman. But then he takes on this dullard, and he manipulates him into doing exactly what he wanted him to. Your heart breaks for Superman on the one hand. On the other hand, you're like, wow, you're an idiot. I mean, granted, the fear toxin, did a lot of its work in that situation, but it was like, if you look at the panel of Superman, seeing Doomsday for the first time, it's great and everything, but the best part of that entire thing is Joker and Harley standing in the background, and so it's like, no, Lois, the baby, and Harley's like, wait, baby, and then you hear Joker in the background going, here we go.
Oh wow!
And Superman is charging at Doomsday. And he's launching, and Doomsday is actually Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And he's launching her into space, and you just see Joker looking at it going, time to go.
Dude,
that went exactly how he wanted it.
I think the first shocking moment of this book was the reveal of what he did to his wife. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when he finds out that that's Lois, I knew right here that I was reading a book that I was probably going to enjoy, just because, okay, that took me by surprise. Good job. If this keeps up, then this is going to be a story I like, and it doesn't let off after this.
Well, yeah, the panel goes like this, and then two hearts coming from one person. It's Lois. And you see Superman, she's just floating out there in space, freezing and dying, and then there's Superman, mouth agape, and he's like, and then again in the next page, it's Lois. And then the continuation of his thought bubble, stop beating. And then the warhead goes off and the Joker goes boom. And Metropolis goes up in smoke. And it's so funny because the next panel, you see them all just sort of standing there helpless. And, and Harley's leaning on Joker like, oh, isn't it beautiful?
And I can't remember if it's there or if it's shortly before that when Joker looks at Batman and says, did you know she was pregnant? And I mean, I was like, fucking ass. Mm-hmm. I mean, you hate the Joker at that point. You hate him just for what happened there. Okay, so that's moment number one with Superman there. Now, the next moment is clearly when I don't know if that happens in the next issue or the issue after that, but
it happens in issue 2.
Issue 2
in front of me,
where now I think Batman's got the Joker at Arkham, or he's got him somewhere. He's got him detained, and he's sitting there talking to him about what was going on. And Superman has decided, after grieving over his slain wife, that he needs to talk to the Joker. Well, not exactly. He's not exactly going to talk to him.
Hang on, I got to read this because it's so good. I mean, it's a sad shame that the Joker doesn't last long in this story because he's so great.
Yeah.
Okay, someone took it all away from you once too, didn't they, Bats? And look what you became, an all-punching, all-kicking little ball of angst. What do you think Superman will become? He's a god who has deluded himself into believing he's a man. What will he turn into? And then Batman, naively maybe says, there are some things even you can't corrupt, Joker. At which point Superman flies in through the wall. And Joker, who's the smartest being out of all of them, goes, you're Patsy, you're so cute. And then he goes on and says, you honestly think your friend will still be fun to play with? He will grieve, but he will stay one of the best men I know. Meanwhile, Superman's throwing a table. No, I think it's going to be a whole lot funnier than that. At which point, Superman fucking Temple of Dooms him.
Sticks his hand straight up through his chest. Mm-hmm. Dude, right here, where you were talking about Batman and what he was saying, no, this is, he's better than that. Superman's better than that. He's not going to go to the extreme you think he's going to go to. That is the collective thought of everybody that's read a Superman comic for years.
He's incorruptible.
Decades. He is incorruptible. He is somebody that he's infallible. He's not going to take a life. That's not Superman. He's too much of a Boy Scout to do something like that. The Joker did it. The Joker fucking did it. And he did it.
The Joker sees into men's souls. That's his whole thing. It's like the Joker doesn't necessarily have a superpower, but he's so smart. And it doesn't matter what happens to him. So that was part of what was great about Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker and the way that he was written in The Dark Knight. It's like, it doesn't matter what you do to me. This is about what I'm doing to you.
Yeah.
This is about corrupting Harvey. That was what the movie was about. It was, can we take this white knight and bring him down to our level? That literally says that in the movie. And now it's the same concept here in Injustice. Here is this man who stands upon a hill. He's the symbol of truth, justice, and the American way. What if he's not, though? What if deep inside there's this thing that within him that if you let it out becomes this monster? Let's see. So let me go about all the machinations of letting out the monster, and let's see what the monster does. That's one of the things I love about the Joker. Why, I'm really obsessed with his character, because this is a guy who, this isn't about robbing banks, but this isn't about Baby Darkseid either, and collapsing the universe and all that stuff. This is seeing what will people do. What will you do if I tweak your nipple?
Yeah.
What will you do if I tickle your sack a little bit? How are you going to react? And he's willing to take whatever comeuppance comes his way just to see what you'll do. I love that about him.
Yeah. Ruthless, chaotic. That's the Joker all over. And he's finally pushed Superman to the brink. And Superman, he didn't just fall over it. He fucking jumped off. And, he's a man unhinged at this point. I mean, he's not going through. I mean, if he was a man unhinged, I guess I would say he would be ripping the Joker clean apart. But putting your hand through a man's chest is close enough. I think it really. Like the next issue, I believe, is where Superman is surrounded by a bunch of TVs, and it has to be like shortly thereafter. If it's not thereafter, it's like 2 or 3 days after, because he's got stubble on his face. But one thing for certain is that he hasn't even showered, because he's got the blood is still stained on his arm from the Joker. And he's just laying there, and he's probably in mourning, and he's trying to figure out what the fuck he just did, and what he's going to do from here on out. And I think that's the next point I want to get to, which is what made him to decide to pretty much become a savior to all humanity. It wasn't that big of an event. It was just him sitting there listening to the news coverage. I think they spoke about what happened with him at first, and then they just kind of quickly switch over to another news story where there's like some bombing going on in a different country. And it's like something clicks in him right there, and he decides to get up, and he flies off, and he stops this dictator from bombing his own citizens. And he says no more. That's not going to happen.
You know what I was thinking about as you were describing it? I was thinking about Iron Man. So Iron Man sort of lives in this world where he's selling weapons, and he's making money, and he's banging broads, and it's the life of Riley. And then he gets captured, and he has to fight his way out, and he builds the Iron Man suit. But once he perfects the Iron Man suit, what does he do? He immediately goes into like a war zone and just decides, just unilaterally, he's going to stop it.
Yeah.
And doesn't think about, thinks he's doing a great thing, but never thinks about the greater consequence of interfering in somebody else's war and somebody else's fight. And for a while there, I don't know if it's that. I know in Dawn of Justice, they make a point of saying that, Superman interfered in what was going on in Africa, and then he leaves, and the warlord slaughtered everybody. And it was, it was like he doesn't, and so that's one of the things I liked about Dawn of Justice. They asked the question, when Superman interferes in the affairs of others, with naively thinking he's doing universal good, but not being there for the consequences of his actions when he finally leaves and there's something to fill that void. I mean, it's I don't want to get off too much on a tangent here, but we took down Saddam Hussein and never really thought about what was going to replace him.
Yeah, the default problem with Superman being all invulnerable, whatever, super speed, whatever, he's one person.
Mm-hmm.
So he shows up, does his civic duty by saving some people, but when he leaves to go take care of the other 20 things that day, there's a vacuum that has to be filled, and usually the people who are already in power just go back to doing exactly what they were doing.
Yep. When the bombs stop dropping, people come out of their holes and resume what they were doing before you started dropping bombs from drones.
Yeah. They fly over.
they fly over. But it's so true to his character, though, isn't it? I have to do something. I'm an all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing God, and yet I couldn't stop myself from murdering my own wife and my unborn child and blowing up my city. I have to do something. I mean, when you think about some horrible things that have happened to you and you have that anxious feeling of not being able to sit in your own skin and all you want to do is run, you want to do something, whether if you've ever had that feeling before, now imagine you're Superman.
Mm-hmm.
You can fly anywhere. You can do anything. Imagine what kind of chaos you're going to cause.
And not only that, you are trying to come to terms and you want to do something to make up for the horrible thing that you just did to your wife and unborn child. You have that drive to be like, okay, he undoubtedly feels horribly guilty about what happened, even though he wasn't in control. He had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah, this is a bad day.
And now he wants to try and make up for what he did. And I totally say, okay, well, yeah, he's fucking Superman. He should be able to go and save everybody. That's what you want to see. You want to see him save everybody, the multitudes of people, because he has the power to do that. And again, this person understands, Tom Taylor understands the power that Superman has and his guilt-ridden soul and the intent to want to do good. Put those three things together, this is exactly where Superman would be. He would be saying, okay, I've got to go change the world. I have to do something to make things better. I'm still clearly on board. Nothing that has been written about Superman has made me go, okay, he is not going to act like that. Because I put myself in his shoes. I'm not invulnerable. I don't have super speed. I don't have laser vision, but I understand the human emotion this guy's going through. That makes the story all that more better. Now, the next little thing I want to talk about just real quick in regards to Superman is it's a small event, but it's an event nonetheless that puts Superman at odds with our own government. I think it's the Mirror Master. I believe it's the Mirror Master is tasked with going and kidnapping
his parents.
Yeah. Now I was going to say, I think Jonathan's still alive in this universe, by the way. So anyway, Jonathan and Martha, he gets kidnapped and he's kind of like, hey, they tell Superman, stay out of governmental affairs. This is their way of trying to talk Superman down. Stay out of governmental affairs, and your parents are going to be just fine. That does not go so well for Mirror Master.
That goes poorly.
But not the key thing here is that our government put him up to that. At least that's my assumption, because there's a guy that I think that's behind them, and it's either the president. I think Batman kind of confirms that later on down the line. But yeah, our government has put Mirror Master up to that, and that's not exactly going to look good in the eyes of Superman. So Superman, he's flipped that switch. So instead of what he may have looked at as a peaceful resolution in this at some point and just backing down and saying, okay, look, I understand where you guys are coming from. I'll do it. No, he gets the Justice League together. They find Mirror Master. He is able to rescue his parents.
Well, they thought it was interesting, that they decided to write a thing in here where the president's like, yeah, let's kidnap the parents, burn down the house, and and say, Superman, if you don't cut it out, you're not going to get your parents back. What? You didn't think this through, did you?
Yeah, this ain't going to work. Well, again, they may be hedging their bets that Superman is going to.
I don't know. This was kind of the least believable thing about the book. I mean, I really, really like Injustice. I really, really like Injustice Gods Among Us Volume 1.
You don't understand Tom Taylor. You don't understand him.
That said, I thought this was stupid.
Okay. All right.
The rest of the book is fine. And again, I get everyone's motivations, and I kind of get what they're saying here with the president and everything. I still thought it was like, hey, you know that invulnerable being that we have no weapon in the world that can take down with the exception of kryptonite? Yeah, let's kidnap his parents and see what he does.
You know, I don't know. I would assume maybe they know about kryptonite. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't know it's his weakness. So you do what any other government does. You kidnap the people they love in order to try and make them to bend their will towards yours.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens to my family every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. Son of a bitch. Here we go again. Gotta go rescue the kids.
Once again, I have to go into the mirror universe and get my kids back from this stupid government.
All right, now we'll probably bring Superman back up here later, but and as we go through the rest of these characters.
Damn you, Donald Trump.
Blame Trump. Anything else you'd like to say? Anything sticks out to you about Superman before we move on to... I'm going to move on to Batman next.
We haven't really gotten to the best part of the book yet, which is the assault on Arkham, which was led by Superman, who basically... I mean, Superman and Batman have basically a philosophical debate that is carried out in the execution of Joker, and then the further dismantling of the rogues at Arkham, which is these people have hurt and murdered countless others hundreds and hundreds of times when you collectively between, the Riddler and all these other, the Penguin and all these other characters that are currently sitting in Arkham, there's restitution and rehabilitation. And then there's just some people you're never going to reach. Yeah. So you do what we had here last week, which is the way he wants it. Well, he gets it.
The way he gets it.
I don't like it any more than you do, Jesse Starcher.
You can thank the Guns N' Roses Blue album for me knowing that. I don't need your Civil War, sir.
That's right. Speaking of which. But again, you have Superman who's like, look, we allowed these people to live, and we hoped that we could be a city on a hill and not just punish people, but rehabilitate them. And all they've done is kill people. And now they've killed someone who's close to me, not to mention blown up an entire city. They have to go. We're done with this. And Batman's like, no, that's wrong. It's a very liberal versus conservative argument, because you hear that all the time. You have half of the people in this country going, death penalty and life imprisonment, and don't give them anything. And, from one range to another, you have people in this country who would very much, because as long as it's not happening to them, think that criminals should be tortured.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our country for you. There are people in this country who absolutely think, that Superman is right in how he's thinking, which is the brilliance of this story.
Exactly.
Is that you as a human being, you as a modern somebody in 2018 can absolutely see Superman's point of view. There are people who's like, yeah, Batman's the villain in Injustice. It's Batman and his stupid liberal naivete that allowed the Joker to murder Lois Lane and everybody in Metropolis. That's an argument.
That point that, I think the Flash is grabbing those rogues and taking them to some other very big secure facility out of Arkham Asylum. And they're not killing them. So I don't want people thinking that, Superman right here is grabbing these people and just taking them out. No, he's taking them to a more secure facility, because again, they were getting out of Arkham because they weren't staying there. They kept escaping. I can identify with what Superman's wanting to do here and why it's important. It's so crazy to see Batman, the dark brooding Batman, as the guy who, he abhors killing and just watched one of his best friends, the guy that just asked him to be the godfather of his child, murder a man. Right there, that moment has turned him. So at Arkham Asylum, Batman has already is not trusting Superman and the Justice League, as they've some of the Justice League, I think all of the Justice League at this time was behind Superman. So he's standing at odds. Arkham is not built to house these crazy criminals. If you look at it on the outside, it's just an old decrepit, mansion from the 1950s or something. It's not.
I don't think they anticipated super criminals like the Riddler and the Joker being
and
there,
fucking Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, down in the basement. I mean, again, that's when I see that, I'm like, well, yeah, Superman's making the right decision here. Get them out of there. Get them into something that can house these fucking criminals. So let's go ahead and we'll get into Batman. Because there's a couple spots, couple things. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up before we get into?
Eventually, we have to come back to Nightwing dying because it's
that's happening. That's my second point here on the Batman thing. So let's talk about Batman's fear of Clark and what he's doing. Which is the main crux here between it's the philosophical debate between Batman and Superman. There's a large conversation that they have after Joker's been killed. Clark comes down there, Superman comes down there and faces Batman in the Batcave to where he says something along the lines of one death to save millions. And then Batman says, well, it always starts with one.
Right.
So
let me tell you something. If this didn't have to end with a video game where the heroes are, where Superman is the worldwide dictator and the heroes are fighting each other with doppelgangers from another dimension, if they didn't have to write this with that endpoint in mind and they could just write the story, Batman would have solved this in this would have been a 12-issue limited series and that would have been the end of it and Superman would have lost. Because in every scenario that's ever been written about Batman, he always is one step ahead of Clark. He always anticipates what his next move is and basically shuts him down. That was the funny part about a lot of the debating, with Batman v Superman. It was like, well, all Superman has to do is flick a finger and Batman would be dead. Okay, but people then miss the point. They've made Batman a super Mr. Fantastic level genius. He tends to anticipate what Superman does because Superman doesn't really think through what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Just as an aside, if you ever get a chance to read it, we're probably not going to cover it on source material, but if you ever get a chance to read the trade paperback for Emperor Joker, that's another one where the Joker picks on Superman, and it's hilarious. The Joker gets Mitzelplix's powers.
Oh, no way.
And starts and just rewrites the entire DNA of the world and screws with Superman in the process. It's hilarious.
Oh, wow.
It's so good.
Mitzelplix is a fun character. He's always been a pain in the ass of Superman. So Joker getting those powers, that sounds like it'd be fun. Let's talk about the loss of Nightwing. Well, the loss of his sons, really, because we have 2 or 3 issues that kind of focus on Damian and Nightwing training each other. Damian Wayne is the son of Bruce Wayne, and I think Natalia, was that her name? I want to call her Natalia.
Talia al Ghul.
Talia al Ghul. At least in our continuity. I assume it's the same over here. But anyway, he's 13 years old. He's the new Robin. And Nightwing, of course, was Dick Grayson? Is he Dick Grayson or?
Nightwing is Dick Grayson, yes.
Okay. All grown up.
Jason Todd is dead.
Jason Todd is dead. There's another one I keep forgetting about. It's Tim Drake.
Tim Drake, who also apparently now is dead.
Oh, well then. So anyway, Nightwing and Damian, who are training each other in the Batcave, and Damian's this hot-headed 13-year-old who kind of sees from Superman's point of view here, and of course Nightwing, who's just trying his best to teach Damian and also be a backup for Batman, I guess you would say. So anyway, the Arkham Asylum invasion happens. They all head over there. There's some very unfortunate series of events that occur where Damian, who has always had a problem with his dad, by the way, really kind of stabs him in the back by finding the heroes first. Well, I say finding Superman, Wonder Woman, the rest of the Justice League first and saying, hey, look, Dad's going here. Nightwing's going to be there at Arkham Asylum waiting on you guys. So Bruce has to endure that betrayal. But not only that, there is, after the fisticuffs break out, Damian, who's always been the hothead, I think Nightwing barks an order at him, says, go do this or go do that. And Damian...
I got it right here. Robin doesn't beat people once they're down. You're not Robin anymore. Stop telling me what to do. At which point he throws one of his weapons at him, one of his batons. It hits him in the side of the head. He gets knocked unconscious. He falls straight down, and his neck hits a rock and basically snaps, and he dies.
And I think what really kind of made that whole thing bite, other than the fact that, we just watched Nightwing die, was when they were training, the same thing was happening. Like, he threw something at Nightwing, and Superman, I think, come in there and grabbed a hold of it when he was visiting down the Batcave, and Nightwing looked at him, he says, don't worry, he tries that shit all the time. Damian gets pissed, he gets hot-headed and does something and lashes out. And these two are kind of like brothers. Not only that, these are kind of like Batman's sons. His real son and Nightwing grew up under the tutelage of Batman as Robin. So for that to happen in front of Batman, it has to be just tragic for him to try and deal with the fact that he watches his own son completely unintentionally murder his other son. Now, I don't know if this comes up later on down the line in the series. It may, I don't know. But it's another one of those shocking moments where you're like, oh, we just lost Nightwing. And
well, that whole thing with Batman, I mean, those panels, where he's cradling Nightwing in his arms and he's walking out the door with him, and on the one side is all the criminals. Just no one's fucking with Batman at this point. Everyone realizes the weight of what's just happened. Mm-hmm. Batman's favorite son was just accidentally killed by his biological son. Whoops. And nobody is pressing Batman at this point. I mean, that was one of the things I wanted to say about year one of Injustice. Superman has a point of view. Batman has a point of view. And at this point, it's still kind of a debate, and they're still trying to get the other one to back down and lay off their point of view. And you have people that are supporting Batman, and you have people like Wonder Woman who are really pushing Superman to continue to do what they believe should have been done all along. That's the funny thing about this is that you have this Justice League that's operated under this modus operandi, and now there's those who have been harboring this belief that this is not the way they should have been doing business at all, and that now is the time for change. Wonder Woman is almost using the opportunity to shift things to, as this story portrays, a belief she's always had. But again, like I said, up till this point, there was still a way back.
Yeah.
There was still this idea that we can put the genie back in the bottle again. Then Dick Grayson dies, and it's kind of like, nope, there's no turning back now. Superman kind of says, because of your actions, Batman, the Joker lived long enough to fuck with me and my family and my city and take it all away. And now Batman is saying, because of your actions, Clark, because of your actions, Superman, my son is dead. Mm-hmm. And at this point, too much has happened for either one of them to really turn back and say, we can fix this.
Yeah, I didn't have it written down here to cover, but there is one of the shorts about Catwoman, because every once in a while they'll throw in like a focus, like you were talking about with Flash. Mm-hmm. But the one with Catwoman where she runs into Superman catches her after she burgles a place. I said burgle. And he's talking to her, and she's like, you guys can't come together and talk your issues out. Brothers
fight.
Yeah.
Let's go talk to each other. Like you'd rather fight Doomsday than actually have a conversation.
Exactly. So this was after I think this was after. Was this after after he had gotten killed? I think it was, wasn't it?
Because so I think he was like I think he went to her. It was like, will you talk to Bruce for me? And she's like, you talk to him, you big fag.
Oh, the YouTubers. No comments, please. Yeah, it's
in the book.
Okay. I don't remember that being in there, but we'll pretend to. Let's hope they haven't read the book. Now, there's a few other ones I want to kind of get your opinion on here. I've got a couple things to talk about, and then we definitely want to talk about the run-in with Aquaman. I think that was an important part of the part of the series.
I so badly want to see. This is what I wanted to say before. I desperately want to see an Injustice movie come to the screen just to see just to see those Aquaman scenes come to life. I also want to see a Flashpoint movie just to see, all of the Amazons of Themyscira fight the Atlanteans of Atlantis.
Oh, have you heard that there is going to be a Flashpoint movie?
I have. Golly, no. This is the DC Cinematic Universe. They were also going to do a Batgirl movie directed by Joss Whedon until they decided they didn't.
Yeah. Things change quickly on a dime.
Things change a lot. The Warner Brothers has gone through 2 or 3 different presidents. The DC has gone through different presidents. At this point, if Shazam and Wonder Woman come out next year, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, I hear you. So we're going to save the little run-in with Aquaman here, probably towards the end. Let's talk about Wonder Woman. Give me your thoughts on Wonder Woman. You've already talked to us a little bit about her
what a rack
motivation.
on her in this, huh? Boy, I have to say, the artists in this movie are like every single stereotype about comics. Look at the tits they draw on these women. Every last one of them.
This series legitimately could have come out at mid-90s to late 90s. And it would have felt appropriate. You know, the spot where we were talking about the Arkham battle where I think Green Lantern, or no, it's Nightwing. Nightwing looks at Superman and says, take care of Grundy, unleash your frustrations. And he systematically like burns Grundy's hand off and then flies through his chest.
Right.
That's, dude, that harkens back to mid-90s Image Comics all the way. And then Batman like explodes his head, but Grundy's not dead, ladies and gentlemen. Grundy's fine. He's going to regenerate probably tomorrow. He regenerates new heads, apparently. I had no idea that he could still be alive after something like that.
God, Gotham fucked up that character so badly.
Did they?
They had a good idea. They made Butch Solomon Grundy, and it was like, oh, good use of that character. Okay, great. And then they gave Butch's memories back.
I have no idea who Butch is.
Butch was a henchman for Fish Mooney, and then he became a henchman for the Penguin. Then Penguin cut off his hand, and he fell in love with the sister of, I don't know, one of the villains from like season 3 or 4 or whatever. They ended up becoming an item, and eventually Barbara Gordon shot him in the head. And then they dumped his body into like a toxic pond, and the toxic pond kept him alive, but turned him into Solomon Grundy. And for a while, born on a Monday, and for a while, like he was operating as the Solomon Grundy we know and love, and it was fine. I'm like, oh, cool, good use of that character. It's a little too early. We don't even have a Batman yet, but sure, Solomon Grundy, let's do it. You know what's great about this is yet another story where there were really no villains. There are no rogues as such in this, other than the Joker. There are no rogues galleries in this story. But there are villains, obviously, and still things are not always so cut and dry. Because again, you see everyone's perspective, and Wonder Woman certainly has a perspective, which you can probably appreciate. You probably see where she's coming from, which is, we've said this before. We have, how many times do we need to fight the same guys before we start doing some permanent damage? Can these people really be saved? Probably not. So why are we trying? Let's just get rid of them and be done with this.
She has an evil side to her. I say evil, but she definitely has this, like, I think at one point Superman refers to her as the diplomat, which we did Hikatea. That's kind of like all she was throughout that, throughout that book, where she was a diplomat.
And the Greg Rucka run on I said before, the Greg Rucka run on Wonder Woman drove me up the wall. I'm like, doesn't she have a foil a bank robbery?
Yeah, she's this emissary, this diplomatic figure, and she's kind of that here, where she's kind of like the mouthpiece, the person that can sometimes she could dispel any type of craziness that's going on. She can kind of talk instead of putting her fists up. She can do it if she needs to, but she would rather use her words to try and resolve a situation. Use your words. The thing is, there is a side to her that's explored through this series, or at least these 6 issues. I think there was one point where they talk about her love for Superman, because she has a deep affection for Superman. She
loves Superman. She wants to have 10,000 of his babies.
10,000 of them. She loves him. There's a story, a short, where she's talking to Ares, god of war, and that comes up. Ares fears the union between Superman and Wonder Woman, and what the offspring would be like. I would assume they would just become this, pardon the pun, but power couple.
Without like a kryptonite bullet, how do you kill Superman?
Yeah, exactly.
And she doesn't. I don't know if Wonder Woman has any vulnerabilities. I don't know what can kill Wonder Woman. I mean, I know she's the Amazons are not immortal, but they certainly do live for a long time, and they're not easy to kill. And I think in some iterations, Wonder Woman is bulletproof.
Well, in this iteration, she is for sure. There's a point during that little short where they're firing on her, and the bullets are bouncing off her face. So she's got that. Yeah, she's damn powerful. She's gone up against Superman before, I believe, and But the thing is,
at least in the movie, they made them vulnerable to everyday weapons. I mean, yeah, she's stronger and everything, but if she got shot in the face, she'd die.
Yeah.
They the Germans killed a lot of good Amazons that day.
Yes, they did. Like I said, she uses her words. Now, the thing is that there's a point, and this we're talking about this next, but I'm bringing it up now. After the whole altercation with Aquaman, where Aquaman looks at her and says, tell Superman that I'm sorry about what happened with Lois. And they make it a point to where afterwards, Superman is sitting there talking to her, and he goes, it's not like Arthur to not say much afterwards. Did he have anything else to say? Something along those lines. She looks at him straight faced and says, nope, didn't have anything to say. Now that is some conniving bullshit right there.
Typical woman stuff. They don't want you to hang out with your friends.
She's setting something up there, or she's just, what do you think's going on there? Why wouldn't she tell him?
It's a control thing.
Okay.
It's absolutely about control. If she can convince Clark Superman that he's alone, nobody understands him except his woman. Mm-hmm. And she's looking to be that woman now. She is looking to be she's looking for a certain degree of control, but she's not Superman. Only Superman is Superman. Yeah. But if she can get in his ear, then by proxy, she gets to be in control.
Yeah. There was a little bit made up about how she wanted him to be the judge, jury, and executioner that he was becoming. The guy that could say, okay, enough is enough, and it's time for a change, Owen Hart.
I'm not a nugget.
But it was, I think that was my take from it, is that she was wanting to be like, okay, well, I don't want anything to soften his resolve. He needs that death of Lois to feed off of. The less sympathy that he gets for it, the more hardened he'll become.
Right. I think, if he feels isolated, if he feels alone, like nobody gets this, nobody understands me, he's more likely to stick to it than, someone trying to understand. Like, Clark, we see where you're coming from. We totally understand. But if there's nobody really doing that, and he's just feeling like nobody gets me, you're right. He's just going to, his resolve will be hardened, and he's just going to stubbornly stay on the path.
Mm-hmm. Anything else about Wonder Woman before we talk about the run-in with Aquaman?
Just huge boobs.
Boobies.
All of them. Her, Harley Quinn. Just ridiculous boobs. I don't understand what the artists were trying to say here.
90s image, I'm telling you.
Well, it's funny. I say that because, if you ever watched, the Mae Young Classic on WWE Network, or even just an episode of Raw, SmackDown, a lot of these women don't have huge chests. They're big, muscular women, but they're not particularly chesty. Then you read the comic book, and they're just they're 6 feet tall and they're triple E boobs.
Yeah, dude.
It's ridiculous. Who's drawing this shit?
That is your prototypical 90s male machismo oozing all over the comic page sometimes. And that's not the greatest descriptor, but yeah, that if you could find an X-Men issue that didn't have some sort of torn clothing that Jim Lee did, or an X-Force issue that Liefeld did, torn clothing on a woman, or some very, very large amount of cleavage. I mean, you weren't looking in the right spot. Well,
I love what Harley Quinn's wearing. She's basically wearing ribbons holding up her boobs, and it's you're a gymnast who's going to be in a fight. Have you ever seen women prepared to do anything physical? Sports bra.
Have you?
Bra. I just think about Wonder Woman when she's walking through the She's walking. They're trying to get her some clothes, and the whole point is so that she'll fit in, be inconspicuous while walking around London until she get to where they need to be. And she's not getting that, so she thinks they're there to buy armor or whatever. And she's like, "How do you fight in this?" You don't.
All right. Okay, well, let's talk about the run-in with Aquaman. Real short, I don't know, it was about 3 issues or so, where Aquaman decided to kind of try and flex his muscle.
This is great, because you can really sum this up in one sentence. Do as I say, or I'll unleash the Kraken. I'll just put Atlantis in the desert. You win. I'm good. I'll be good.
We'll see each other next time. Just put Atlantis back. Yeah, it's not that in depth, but it just kind of again shows you like where's Aquaman throughout all this. Oh, he's busy being the king of Atlantis until he decides that maybe things aren't going so well in the surface world. Tries to make himself known, and then Superman again puts him in his place. Really, the big factor is when they moved Atlantis. I can't remember. I think Superman says that Green Lantern wasn't too keen on the idea, and I think he mentioned somebody else as well. So it's another kind of cog in the wheel to show you that a lot of people aren't as pleased with the actions that Superman is taking. Removing a city from the bottom of the sea, people who live in water, and putting it in the desert. Now, granted, there was a dome over it, so the people it's not like everybody died, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
But he still did it to prove a point. And that didn't sit well with a lot of the people, a lot of the members of the Justice League.
I think what he needed to do was go down there, use his heat ray, just zap everybody. The next frame, you just see him eating fish and chips.
Just boil them all alive.
Yeah, he's got
some baby back ribs.
He's got the trident in the background and like some other like Aquaman stuff just lying around. Aquaman's head's like mounted on something. Really, really be gruesome.
All right, so let's move on. I think we've only got a couple other people they're bit players, and I'll just get your opinion on them. The Flash was kind of a bit player here, but I think he's going to be an important player at some point.
Yeah, as the series continues, there's definitely more focus on some of the other characters. Obviously, this is Superman's descent into hell. But, along the way, you have the Green Lantern's corpse. And, I think in year 3, they deal with Constantine. So there's always...
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's a great series. And it's actually one... Well, I collected it for a long time, and I just, I got out of it. I have to go back now and get the trades and get myself completely caught up because it was a really fun series. And we're every year, again, what the end point is going to be. It's kind of like the prequel trilogies, Star Wars, but the ride getting there is a lot of fun and there's a lot of twists and turns and Superman isn't always winning.
Awesome. So the Flash, just real quick to kind of give his little bit of a story arc, Batman tries to kind of sway him or win him over by showing him an event, I think, that happened down in Australia where there's a protest going on. I believe it's against what Superman is doing. So a bunch of citizens and potential superpower beings come out to protest the rule of Superman. And Superman and Wonder Woman are there during that presentation when some guy in a golden suit, I can't remember what they called him, Galaxor, I think it was his name.
Galaxor, yeah.
Galaxor shows up and he says, no, you guys go home. And at about that time, Superman and Wonder Woman lay down the law on this guy by picking him up and tossing him to the ground, instantly paralyzing this dude. So they had a show of force, and it was... it's not like this guy was powering up his weapons or anything.
Hey, Jesse, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Why should it go well?
Why should it goes well? I have no idea. But yeah, this guy gets laid out. His spine's broken.
It didn't go well.
It did not go well for him. But Batman kind of gets in Flash's ear and says, hey, real quick, why don't you head down to where this guy came from and talk to somebody there? And he goes and finds this lab. And it turns out Galaxor was a huge fan of the Flash, had all his pictures up on the wall. And Batman used that to make a point hey, look, they're breaking heroes. They're putting the people that believe in us in onto the ground and crushing them. So I thought that was neat. Again, just like you said, it's going to play into it later. Anything else on the Flash?
No, that little bit was good and
it was necessary. I think it was necessary.
Yeah, I think it showed. I think it was a good example of how I think people believed in the mission, but didn't always necessarily think they were going about it the right way.
Yeah, he's definitely one of them. He's probably one of those ones that are on the fence for sure about what's going on and what Superman and Wonder Woman are doing. And it's Batman making a play. It's kind of obvious that that's the case.
Well, you're gonna see that as people start to pick sides, and there are definitely some that think Superman's completely in the wrong, and they're willing to join Batman and put up the good fight. The Batman side is seriously underwhelmed.
Yeah, at the end of this,
overwhelmed or rather underwhelming.
Yeah, at the end of this, I remember they were like checking out some other possible recruits. The most powerful of them was the Atom.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had the Huntress there, I believe. He had Batgirl. I'm like, man, not too many of those guys are going to last a few minutes against some of these guys. But Batman, you never can underestimate him. You cannot underestimate him.
It's like, again, it's what he lacks in the ability to produce brute force. He makes up for in being able to outthink you.
Yeah. All right, last one. And again, it's another bit player, but bit players, if you will. Green Arrow and Harley. What's your thought?
Oh, this was adorable.
It was, wasn't it?
First of all, and again, this goes without saying, nobody should have to justify a fake mustache. It's good stuff. I mean, I know Harley Quinn, the character gets a lot of shit from people for being basically like this sex puppet, kind of figure. And it's like, oh God, so Harley Quinn is chick Deadpool at this point. That's what a lot of people say. There's just like, she's overused and overblown. What started out as a fun little side character for the Joker, sidekick for the Joker, has just become this cosplay phenomenon. For girls over sexualized, for girls of all shapes and sizes to throw on a corset and get a little crazy. But I really enjoy the Harley Quinn character. I think she's great. I told you one of the favorite books that I've read of last year was the miniseries of Power Girl and Harley Quinn, or as I like to call it, Boobs Are Us. Do you like boobs? Read Power Girl.
The old Power Girl boob window. That's a staple in her costume.
Yeah, very, very fitting for somebody who's going to be fighting people.
Harley is an unwitting. She's a villain. She had her hand in what happened to Lois at the beginning. When she found out that Lois was pregnant, I have a strange, sneaking suspicion that she probably wasn't on board for all that.
I think with the way that her and the Joker operate is she goes along with his schemes because she loves him. And, he's this he's this artist, basically, and nobody understands him but his woman, as I said before. And so she sees in the Joker, this sort of like haunted artist. She's willing to go along with his machinations because of it. But I think she often finds herself questioning what she's doing. Mm-hmm. She has some difficulties finding that balance between making him happy and going along with his crazy ideas and being true to herself.
Yeah. And so, I mean, she loses her significant other after Superman kills him. She loses the Joker.
That's probably the weakest part of this for me is like the Joker was her everything.
Yeah.
And they don't really spend a lot of time with her reaction to it. She should have been like
broken and grieving and
like I would have gone with catatonic.
Okay.
Her whole reason for living is gone.
Mr. J. Yeah, and she ends up finding Oliver Queen, Green Arrow. A strange relationship occurs. I mean, I remember reading some of the issues after this, and I believe they become an item, don't they?
I know they connect in some way.
All right. I couldn't remember if they actually become like a love interest or
I don't remember.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember.
Well, again, it was a.
Well, I think he's going to buy it later on. I feel like at some point Green Arrow is going to die. He's going to get killed by one of the heroes.
Oh no! Well, you can't help but feel for Harley Quinn a little bit.
Sorry, spoiler alert.
I can't remember how far I read. I think I read the first year maybe, or at least a good portion of the first year. But I got into other things after that. So yeah, I like that little side story, Green Arrow and Harley Quinn. Enjoyed it a good bit. And it was kind of silly because, Green Arrow accidentally happens upon the whole thing at Arkham Asylum when he's bringing Harley Quinn's ass back to it.
Right. And then she again unwittingly participates in the murder of Nightwing because she's the one that let out all the criminals.
Oh, that's right.
That led to that fight.
Wow. All right. Well, let's go ahead and give our final thoughts. I don't really have anything else to touch on unless you do.
No, I really think we covered this pretty well. Look, it's a great story. I didn't realize when I booked this on the schedule and then bought the trade that the trade only covered the first 6 issues. I mean, a lot of trades do that, so I shouldn't have been too surprised. So depending on, just don't do what I did. You got to look carefully at these trades when you're in the store. There's volumes and then there's years. If you if you look at them and they say the complete year, then that's like all 12 issues or however many issues were in that particular year. It's one complete story from beginning to end. And like I said, one year deals with mysticism and Constantine. Another year deals entirely with the Green Lantern's Corps. So we've only done half the year with what we covered tonight, because when I bought the trade, I did not realize it was only half the year. But and the whole full year is available in one trade. You just gotta not do what I did and pay attention. So we don't get to see like the beginnings of the revolution. You don't get to see Batman. You don't get to see Superman break Batman's back.
You're shitting me. That happened?
No, yeah,
nice.
You really got to finish. Like, if you get a chance, just like, I don't know if we're ever going to cover the rest of this, but go finish. Just on your own, go finish it, because that's how it ends. It ends with Superman breaking Batman.
Oh, that's so fucking awesome.
If I remember correctly.
That is why I think stories like this could thrive in a great environment with good writing. Tom Taylor again does a good job, and that whole breaking of the Bat's back that's an homage to comics history.
Yep.
And it incorporates that into here. That's so great.
So we're doing this for, in case people are wondering, what are we synergizing with this week? Ready Player One. If you're listening to us live on Jesse's YouTube channel, Ready Player One comes out this Friday. Actually, it might be coming out this Wednesday, if I remember correctly. It's like a day early. But we'll be reviewing it a week from this Tuesday on Damn You Hollywood. So we're going to do an ode to video games all week long. So we'll have this show in its edited format up on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network on Spreaker. On Monday, on Tuesday, we'll review Ready Player One. On Wednesday, the Metal Hammer of Doom's getting in the act. We're going to review the very first Power Glove album. So that'll be fun. And then Thursday, assuming Sean isn't in the middle of a Twitch something or other, which is what happened on last Thursday. We did not have it on trial for Tomb Raider.
Let's make sure we clarify. When we say Twitch, we mean the platform Twitch. That's similar to YouTube, where you can watch people play games, not just like having a seizure or something.
No. Sean was not. Sean was not in the midst of a medical emergency, as I know that I'm aware of. At least
he's having a Twitch.
No, Sean was doing something gaming, and he did not realize that we had something set up for that day, I guess. So no Tomb Raider. That's fine. We'll move on to the next thing. We will be looking at the old Disney classic, the original Tron, not Tron Legacy, the original Tron.
Oh boy.
And one of us will be prosecuting, one of us will be defending, and then that's it for the week that this airs on the network. This week, if you're listening live, let's go back to my calendar. If you're listening live, we've got our Pacific Rim review tomorrow. Robert Winfrey comes back. I promise you'll hear both of us this time. As advertised by the Metal Hammer of Doom Extra, we've got The Sword. And then on Thursday, at Gunpoint, Ronnie Adams is going to host his own damn show. And we're going to talk about the rise and fall of Toys R Us. Now, this weekend, Metal Hammer of Doom Extra, if I can find the individual singles that were put out by Power Glove on YouTube, we'll probably do those as Metal Hammer of Doom Extras. So this year, 2018, Power Glove decided to put out an album, but like one single at a time. I have to do a little bit more research on this, but basically, instead of putting out a whole album at once, they just put out a series of singles under the album title Continue with a question mark. So if I can actually find all those, then we'll take a look at a couple of them this weekend to promote the Metal Hammer of Doom review of Power Glove Metal Combat for Mortal Men.
Sweet. All right. Well, so we've got final thoughts. Your final thoughts and plugs are done. So it's my turn. I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this real quickly, and then we'll get into my plugs and we'll get out of here. So yes, Injustice. The first 6 issues of this series are probably some of the most phenomenal comic book experience that I had in quite a while. There was a time where I used to grab comics and I'd read them on my phone when I was hanging out upstairs, waiting for my son to go to sleep. And this was one of the ones I killed time by reading. Just happened upon it. Now, I don't even know if I knew it was a game, because I went into it thinking it's going to be this series is going to influence the game. I didn't realize, even though it probably said it on the cover of the freaking issue, by the makers of Mortal Kombat, based on the video game. But either way, that says a lot. again, this is a comic book that is based off of a video game, and it tells a tremendous story. And there is, as I've already said at the beginning, this was a story that was told very well by Tom Taylor. Had me on the edge of my seat with all the twists and the turns and what's going to happen next. So I would highly recommend, if you have not had the chance to read it. Yeah, we've spoiled it, but there's nothing like going through it and reading it and actually watching it unfold in front of your face, because there is the art to this, and the moments that accentuate this story are, even though I didn't exactly give the art high remarks, it gets the point across. It does a good job. So yes, I absolutely would recommend it to somebody. If they have the chance, check it out, especially if you're a fan of the game. You want to know what happens before? Grab these books. All right, so as for my plugs, ladies and gentlemen, go give the Radulich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. Source Material does have a Facebook page, so if you want to check that out, just type in Source Material up in the search bar. You should be able to find our page pretty easily. I think it goes by the Source Material Comics Podcast. Go ahead.
Leave those comments, ladies and gentlemen. We love them.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Please do. Let us know what you think. And I don't think there's any way for me to mute the comments on Facebook. I can delete them. I may very well do so, you jerks. But no, feel free. We put on we think we put on a good show here for you. So if you enjoyed yourself, let us know. Other than that, I think that's it. My name's Jesse Starcher. That is Mark Radulich. Thank you all for joining us on our coverage of issues 1 through 6 of Injustice Year 1. Have a good one! I'm gonna save it because I want to talk. Here's what's going to happen when I do the synopsis. I'm synopsis. I don't know what the plural or whatever the hell that word is. Past tense.
Do me a favor. Try the plural of synopsis again.
Synopsisize.
I'm buried in Killarney.
Put in an exclamation point. Yeah, let's try it again.
I'm buried in Killarney. Let's see. It's a no. Okay.
The Phantom Zone's not a nice place. I mean,
no.
You get turned into a 2D album cover and you float through space. It's not fun.
No, I don't want to be an LP.
We talked about Iraq. What else do you think about Wonder Woman here?
You know, when you first said that, I was just like, yeah, we talked about Iraq like 20 minutes ago.
No.
Iraq. Got it. Hong Kong, Phooey, and Black Lightning, bitches. Woo! Jabba Jaws.
Every Saturday morning on the USA Cartoon Express.
He's the greatest shark you ever saw. Yuck, 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 yuck.
That's a titty. I'm gonna have to find that on YouTube and send it to you. Although I don't know if I have the.
I hope we get lots of comments.